How has the week been for you?
Yeah, seems like I'm a bit of a broken record, but I think when your training's at a very good level, everyone looks sharp. They've got a smile on their face. There's just a real positive vibe around the place, and we stay in touch wood in good health. Then it has to be a good week, and we've ticked another one off this week.
Does the preparation change based on the fact that Atlanta is going to host such a big atmosphere?
I'm not sure that we can do an awful lot about that. We certainly encountered one of our own terrific atmospheres this past weekend, and that will serve us well going to Mercedes-Benz. But it is a unique place. They do get a fantastic following, and if it doesn't inspire the guys to drag another 5 or 10% out of themselves, then I'm not sure anything will. So it's a game on the schedule that I think everyone licks their lips and looks forward to. If you're a top player, these are the ones you want to be involved in.
We will now send it over to you, gentlemen, and we will kick it off with a question from right here.
Yeah, good afternoon, Gary. I'm curious, as you're looking at Saturday and considering how obviously since last season in the bunches that you played Atlanta, the group has really come into its own, and the style and the identity of the club has gone from the preliminary stages to the solidified state. So I'm curious to know, when you look at this Atlanta side, what do you think still sets apart how and what Nashville has done versus, I guess, the quality and what Atlanta is as far as difficulty and success against each other?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to look at is that any team that's won a championship and have achieved what they have in their history, there's got to be a certain amount of respect for what's gone on there. And, this group are stacked with talent. We all have our own issues and problems with getting players on the field, but the bottom line is they are, one of the top MLS groups and are fighting to remain in that place. You can see exactly what Gabriel Heinz is trying to implement and some of the ideas that he has in mind for the team. And I think that's given them maybe a slightly different look to before. But I don't think that makes them any easier to play against. In fact, I would say it makes the game a tad more difficult. In front of their own crowd, they play their field well. They get that crowd behind them. It is a different environment and a different surface. And I think you'll find a lot of home teams that have those sort of assets to build on normally have a very good home record, and they do. So, we're not taking any of this for granted. We have a tremendous task on our hands. We know that. But to your point, Drake, I think we're in a really good place. The players have not only taken steps forward this season, but I think they found themselves mentally taking steps forward as a group. And I'm sure we'll feel, in as good a place as they could at this point in the season of going to Atlanta and competing.
Gentry estás with the Tennessean as well.
Yeah, hey, Gary. As you look around MLS so far this season, you being one of the few teams left that doesn't have a defeat, has anything changed your opinion about the top tier of the league and where your team could fit in that?
I think every season and every campaign, there'll be just about every team wanting to break into that higher echelon or top three. We hear constantly about the Premier League breaking into the top four, and I think the top three in each conference are the areas that every team are trying to achieve. I think we're capable of competing for those spots. What I will say is, when you've got sides that have regularly achieved that, when you've got teams that have had probably a longer history to try to piece together and have back-to-back and season after season been competing for that, it does give you an advantage. It would be our first time of ever making that level, and the first time for anything is always the most difficult time. So look, we're way early in the season to be considering those sort of things. I'm very mindful of continuing to take baby steps to improve our group in the numerous different areas. I think we're slowly but surely doing that. We are a difficult prospect for most teams, and I want to keep it that way. And I think if we can continue down that line, who knows what the future holds for us.
Ben Wright with Broadway Sports.
Yeah, Gary, I know you typically keep selection questions pretty close to the chest, so take this one however you will. Last week we talked about Daniel Rios and just his fitness, and you said that you were holding him out of the Atlanta game to just give him some more time in training. Can you just talk a little bit about the thought process with the international break coming up, just on how you handle an injury like that and getting him back versus making sure he's fully fit?
Well, I think this is the first week that we could truly say that if need be, Daniel's available. He's had another very good week. I am very mindful of the fact that Daniel, because of the off season, has been inactive for 4 or 5 months. So that in itself is something I do have to consider. But the other thing is Daniel's record is a very good one. He would be an asset for any team. And, that has to come into my consideration for this weekend, especially with the way that we've been playing. The more forwards, the merrier at the moment. And I think those guys are doing a very good job. So, I'm not going to answer the question of who is involved and how am I going to play. But, we've been on a good run. And I think whoever we put out on the field will be in a very confident mood. And I'm getting more and more players to pick from, which is making my decision on the squad harder and harder. But it's also creating more and more competition, which in itself, of course, brings more out of players.
Tim Sullivan with the next question.
You mentioned after the game Sunday evening that you were disappointed with the finishing. When you got a chance to go back and look at it, was there something kind of underlying that was behind all of it? Was it kind of a little bit of bad luck and a couple poor decisions, or is it something that you might snap your fingers and it's better?
Well, I do wish that the snapping of the fingers was the way forward, Tim. It would make, I think, all coaches' lives a hell of a lot easier. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. There is only one way of trying to improve, be it in front of goal or anywhere else, and that's to work hard at it and try and put players in the most natural positions you can to replicate a match situation under pressure, at pace, and in situations that are not stereotypical. It's very rare that you receive a ball, 12 yards from goal under no pressure, and you can pick your spot and choose whatever type of finish you want. So, as far as our guys are concerned, number one, I am very pleased with the amount of good opportunities we're creating. It's a step forward for the group. It's something I think we always felt we were capable of, but it's growing. It's having that confidence within, and I mean within yourself as well as within the team, that those moments are going to come along, and we do have the quality to create them. Clinical finishers are the most expensive soccer players, and to have one of those individuals is normally a king's ransom to get in the team. But listen, I've got some very good forwards here. I've got a lot of belief in those forwards. And I do believe if we continue to make the chances we are, that we'll see those guys not only come good, but hopefully hitting the sort of digits that we would like to see our forwards hitting and up there with the contenders at the end of the season.
Claudia Villalobos with the final question for you, Coach.
Gary, if we can actually talk about similarities among teams that Nashville faces, I would say that one of them is comparing Atlanta with Austin is that both teams relied a lot on ball possession, and they usually beat the rivals possessing the ball. One of the things that is being Heinze and Atlanta criticized for this year in the MLS is the large amount of possession that they have without actually getting into the third quarter of the rivals to create opportunities. Is that something that you've actually, I'm sure you've already seen, but is that something you expect to have the Atlanta repeat against Nashville, being that Nashville is so difficult to score against?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll play into the game plan for both coaches. They do possess the ball very well, and I expect them to maybe take that stat. I would think that moving forward a little bit like ourselves, finding that balance for Gabriel to understand his players a little bit more, and to maybe ask more of them, to add, take away players, whatever it means to develop a group. And I honestly think he's, in a short period of time, had a really positive impact on the team. You can definitely see the shift in the way that they play and what they're trying to achieve, and that tells me that the players have bought into a lot of things that he's talking about. You've also got one of the best, if not the best, goal scorers in MLS history, still finding his way back to top form. And take 25, 30 goals out of any team, and you're going to find that pretty difficult. So I would think they're going to be patient in that world as well, and give Joseph the time he needs to get back to full health and sharpness. Look, it's important to us to make this game a difficult one for them. I think all home teams want to have it their own way and create chances and possess the ball and get the crowd on their feet. And it'll be our job to, in many ways, do our best to spoil the party, because it is a rivalry game. There is a little bit of edge between the two teams, and I think we've improved. I think the result last year when we beat them at home gave us a hell of a lot of confidence. I know we're not running into exactly the same team, but I can only tell you from where we sit, we're ready to go and make it a very tough game for Atlanta, and may the best team win on the day. And if it ends up that way, I'm sure we'll both be happy with the way the teams have performed.
Thank you. Welcome, CJ. How has the week gone for you in terms of preparations?
It's gone well. Obviously, we've been in high spirits from the win this past weekend. Was able to get some rest, and today I think everybody was feeling pretty rested, and the training was sharp, and it's a good feeling and a good energy to be going into a game this weekend.
Thank you so very much. We'll now open the floor for questions. A reminder for the media to please alert me through the chat if you have a question for CJ, and we'll kick it off with Tim Sullivan with the first one.
CJ, when you look across the field and you see a goal scorer like Joseph Martinez, does it put additional pressure on you as a goal scorer for the other team to be on your game that day and make sure that you, if needed, can outscore the other team?
There's always going to be pressures that are put upon yourself as a player. I definitely can't say that it's dependent on who's across from me in terms of the other forwards. The only members of the team across from me that I'm looking at and analyzing and see where I can have a impact are the defenders. I will say when it comes to Joseph, like just with his ability and the success he's had in the league, there is a respect there. But ultimately, before I even get to that point, I've run through a lot of different scenarios in my head. I've tried to visualize, myself in situations to help my team win.
The next question comes from Ben Wright with Pro Sports. Ben?
Yeah, CJ. I mean, you've been around MLS for a while and played in a bunch of different systems. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about the differences for you playing with a single striker and in this 4-4-2 that we've seen recently, and then within that, how your role changes playing with a guy like Shonder versus a guy like Dom.
Yeah, so playing two forwards, it's a system that's kind of faltered over the years, and I personally I grew up kind of playing in that system. I think it gives you an opportunity as a forward to find yourself in spaces, in blind spots of defenders. Sorry, there's a lawnmower going by the window. All right. Yeah, you're able to find yourself in spots that defenders can't really see you. And ultimately, when they have somebody else to worry about, it gives you more of an opportunity to find spaces. So in that regard, I like the 2-4 system. However, when you don't have as much cover in the midfield, it's going to require a little bit more work defensively. And that's something I don't mind doing and have done even when I'm at the single striker. But it is work that has to be done with a level of cognizance, because if you do it wrong, you could leave the team exposed. When you have a guy like Yonder and Baji, I mean, ultimately, I look at us three as just forces of nature. And when you have two of us on the field, we're gonna work at the defense, and we're gonna, hack away at them, and I believe over time find our opportunities.
Thank you, CJ. We have one more question from Claudio Villalobos.
CJ, it is obvious that you've been feeling better and better every time you jump into the field with the team. And besides the fact that you have to follow the coach's tactical expectations from you, what is it is there anything you can pinpoint from your own requirement, or the stuff that you really require from your own performance that you still think that you need to accomplish?
For a forward, it's always just becoming prolific, right? And becoming proficient and being that forward that can make a half chance a goal. The area that allows me to consistently get on the field and feel confident is I know I have total control over the mentality in which I approach the game. With that, I can bring effort. With effort, most likely you're gonna push the scales in your direction a good amount of the time. However, obviously, I would like to be as sharp as possible and be as proficient in my striking to the point where I'm that player that just needs one chance and can put it away and win the game for the team.
So, Alistair, how has the week of preparation gone for you?
It's gone well. Getting used to the summer weather here in Nashville, but no, we're excited. This is a big one for us, kind of another local rival to a degree down in Atlanta. We're excited to play in front of a big crowd again, and we're hoping to have a good away crowd as well. Make the trip down to Atlanta, and it's one of those exciting games. I think it's one of those ones that you look at and you just can't not get up for. Looking at Atlanta, looking at their lineup, and this is a kind of club that we try to emulate to a lot of degrees with how they've come into the league and really taken it by storm. And that's kind of our what we want to do as well here in Nashville. So we're excited for it. The week's gone really well. Boys look good, look prepared, and just excited to get out there already.
Team Sullivan with the first question for you.
When you look at what Atlanta has done so far this year, primarily a 3-back with wing backs, how does that affect the spaces that you need to defend, and then maybe also the spaces that you can get into offensively too?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before with Montreal, and it gave us some different just pictures to look at, I think. And as a team, I think that we kind of get excited by it, especially I know us fullbacks and us wingers, we see it as, all right, we potentially have an overload out wide. So it's one of those ones that we've played against it. We understand the strengths of the 3-4-3, and we also understand the weaknesses. So it's gonna be all about just playing to our game plan that we have laid out, and just really taking advantage of those areas that are going to be vulnerabilities when you play 3 at the back.
Great, Fields with the next one.
Yeah, Alistair, you mentioned in your opening statement just how it's obviously Atlanta's a just in general, exactly sets them apart as far as how you guys look at them. Obviously, towards the end of last season, you guys were much more successful against them. So I'm curious to know like what you think sets them apart too. Is it Joseph or is it just something else?
Well, first of all, that crowd does a lot. I know they're going to be fueled playing in front of 70,000 down there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it's a bit of a madhouse going down there. But yeah, they've got quality players. They have an identity and they want to play. So I think they're one of those teams as well. They're one of those big franchises that you look at and you see it on the calendar. Instantly, you're going to circle that one. So I think for us, and just looking at this team, is that they're kind of at that level. They've reached that elite status over the past couple of years once they came into the league, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We want to be one of those teams that's kind of a perennial contender. And I know they had a bit of an off year last year, but at the same time, is when you got guys like Joseph and Barco and players like that who are that top level quality guy, they're always going to be up there. And I think that obviously we've seen already this year that what they can do, and we're going to be prepared for it.
Next question from Claudio Villalobos.
Alistair, like when you mentioned the word emulate what Atlanta has done as a club, one question came to mind, and I already had it before, but I wasn't able to ask you this. When you look at your position, and especially at the beginning of your career, what kind of a player on your position is one that you try to emulate for, or because of you might admire the way he played or the way he approached the game?
Coming into the league, Dan Lovitz is a great one, someone that I would try to play like, but I just think there's so many good fullbacks in this league that I've looked at. The obvious one for me would be Richie Larea at Toronto FC. And I've been lucky enough now playing with Canada to meet him and really get to see it up close, what his game's like. So he's one of those guys I've always tried to emulate, but there are tons of really good fullbacks in this league. And I think it's one of those positions in this league that's really underappreciated to a degree. I think there's some serious players from Tinnerholm to Hollingshead, guys like that I think are honestly underappreciated to a lot of degrees. But no, those are the kind of guys coming to the league that I always wanted to be like. And I mean, growing up, you watch overseas all the time, and there's obviously some players that you want to play like Dani Alves, Marcelo, guys like that. But for me, it's been over the past couple of years is looking at guys like Trent Alexander-Arnold and players like that over in England who follow a bit more of what my kind of style is like in terms of getting crosses in and being a little bit more of a long-legged defender who's athletic as well. So those are kind of the guys I've been looking at across the league and internationally.
Ben Wright with one more question.
Yeah, Alistair, I know that kind of the standard response is that you treat every game the same and you're focused on every game the same. But I think with this one, fans obviously feel like there's a rivalry, there's geographic proximity, and I think last season you could see a little bit of kind of chippiness against Atlanta. Does a game like this kind of not mean more to you? But do you just feel a little bit different about a game like this, or is it kind of just business as usual?
I think, yeah, the cookie cutter answer is that every game we take the same, but everyone knows that's not necessarily completely true. We feel what the fans feel. At the end of the day, we're a part of this club too. We know what the rivalries are. We see it all over social media. We know that, Atlanta and Nashville aren't going to be the best of friends in this league. So we understand that the geographical proximity as well. And we know that this is a big one for our fans. And at the end of the day, you look around the league and you look at leagues overseas that, some teams be like, they lose every single game of the year as long as they beat their crosstown rival or their local rival. So for us, I don't think it's to that degree yet. And we hope to kind of build this rivalry up. But at the same time is that, it is one that everyone on our team has marked on their calendars. And, this is one that if we could give up something to take a win on the road somewhere, this would be a great one to really go out there and make a statement win.